Good afternoon. I'll just bring your attention back, please, for our penultimate session. I'm delighted to introduce Margaret McClune from ATU. Her colleague, Professor Colette Keddy from University of Galway, is not fortunately not with us this afternoon. Margaret is going to speak on their behalf on From Beans to Brilliance, the World Cafe Method, a masterclass in utilising the World Cafe Method in person and online for conversations that matter. Margaret.
Thanks, Norm. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to present about the use of, ironically, conversation, both digitally and in person, in a world where conversation is becoming more difficult. And I suppose just to be aware that the World Cafe is a tool that could be used for assessment and teaching and learning, for research, for module evaluations, for teams planning modules or programs and assessment. So, and also for developing communities of practice. So when we do come together, do we really make the best use of our time, and do we record those conversations? So just before I begin, I just wanted to, rather than rushing at the end to thank people, I really wanted to thank the most amazing CELT team that we have in Sligo. So Niamh and Patricia and Louise and Jamie Lee, they do so much work, and even to help me do this course, and the admin and the tendering process and all the rest. Just I really want to acknowledge them, because without their support, I wouldn't get these opportunities. Another colleague of mine, Tamsin, because I really believe I'm a visual learner, and I believe in we've all got a little bit of PowerPoint fatigue. So Tamsin for helping me with my graphic facilitation skills. And finally, the two most amazing hosts I met on the World Cafe journey, Amy Lorenzo and Maria Scordliosis, who are our facilitators to become World Cafe hosts. So just before I begin. Okay, so I suppose what I wanted to really talk about was what if conversation became the center of what I was doing as opposed to something on the side. And I really believe that conversations aren't often captured anymore, unfortunately. And often what happens maybe outside in the hub today or in other things, all these wonderful things might be going on, but we're not really gathering them maybe or capturing them correctly. So I kind of really believe in the whole thing about conversation and listening to understand, not to reply. And because I really love talking, this is a really hard skill to learn. If you actually try and listen to somebody, not getting ready to reply, but actually listening, it's a much different skill. And I suppose it emphasizes the fact of, I suppose, really truly hearing what's going on in the room. I apologize in advance, I might move a little bit through these, but you can have the slides afterwards. And that listen to understand, not to reply, comes from a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Not that I'm highly effective necessarily, but I just think it's a very interesting concept. It's a few simple words, but they mean a lot. So I suppose conversation is really getting threatened in society because we are digitally, I suppose, more and more advanced. And then if we are to have conversations digitally, are we capturing them as well? So technoference and phubbing are two things, I suppose, that are increasingly becoming challenges to us all. So obviously we could spend the whole talking about these things, but technoference occurs when my interpersonal exchanges are affected by technology, and phubbing is basically when I meet my girlfriends for coffee and they decide they're going to go on their phone and arrange their next coffee break. So snubbing people with your phone. So I suppose this is where conversation, I think, is so important, that we capture true conversation. So I didn't get the beans from brilliance from ChatGPT or anything like that when I come up with the title. So Beans to Brilliance, I suppose, is about creating conversations that matter both digitally and in person. And this magic in the middle can occur if we do this. And I've seen it only a couple of times because I haven't that much experience. But when it does happen, it's really important that you put time into brewing that perfect cup of coffee. So just for anyone who's interested, I suppose you'd have to read really the World Cafe book from 2005 by Juanita Brown and David Isaacs. I was lucky to have met them as part of my training, Juanita Brown as well. So what does it mean? It means that we're going to have powerful conversations where we get collective intelligence. So all of us together are going to gather information, but we're also going to use that information in a powerful way. And essentially, these are the principles of a World Cafe, starting at the top, clarifying the context and working our way around. So in order to say you've hosted a World Cafe, there's certain kind of requirements that we have to have fulfilled in terms of a research methodology, but also in terms of just a practice in itself. So I suppose it's about we can be wise, but we can only be wise together. And what I really like about it is a World Cafe actually is probably one of the best examples of a teaching and learning or a planning tool that is fairly universal in terms of universal design for learning principles, because we can engage with different literacy levels, etc. As well. So the core things are we're going to talk and think about more deeply together, and then we're going to get this down in some way that we can use it in the future. Just in relation to when we talk about a World Cafe, there's a whole different lingo, which I didn't know until I did the training. So we check in and we become present. We have a host who hosts the session, but each table then has a table host who's a member of the group who's just turned up on the day. We have table rounds, not questions. We have at the end of each table round what we call a mini harvest. And at the end of the entire session, we have a master harvest in relation to the conversations that are taking place or the buzz that's going on. The host, I suppose, really importantly, is there to kind of nourish the conversation, but also to give people time and space to inquire and answer these questions, I suppose, or table rounds that we're going to be hosting as well. So I suppose there's a whole kind of then literature around that I have to, as a host, be able to host myself and be comfortable with my material. I'm going to be hosted by the people who've turned up today. I'm going to be part of a hosting community, and I'm going to learn from other people in that community. So I suppose I kind of think of it a little bit like this conversational greenhouse. How do you create the perfect environment for conversations to take place in person or online? I'm conscious at the time today, but I could spend a whole session on each of these, but just to know that you have to get the context right. You have to inform people why they're there, the purpose, the parameters. You have to have boundaries around your conversations. You have to create hospitable spaces that people can move around in. So obviously this wouldn't be a very hospitable space for us to have a great old conversation today. So generally, I would start by some graphic facilitation. This was a module review, so you welcome them along, you invite them into these hospitable spaces. This if it's in person, so you can bring your tablecloths, your plants, and your materials along to create that space. If you're hosting digitally, there's a separate kind of information that I can talk to you about, but we have a live tablecloth that we record out in our breakout rooms, and then we bring them back. You could also obviously use the apps like your Miros or your Padlet type apps to record the feedback that's taking place in each conversation. You have to explore questions that matter, generally open questions, obviously, that are very linked to, I suppose, and the questions are the seminal part of the whole cafe. So you'd only have normally 2, 3, maybe 4 questions for an entire 2-hour session. And I suppose we're going to try and create a world of information and kind of actions from those by becoming wiser together as well. You're going to encourage everybody's contribution, really, really important in a World Cafe, be that in person or not. They're contributors, they're not participants in a World Cafe, which is a difference as well from, say, a focus group. And I suppose that we all appreciate that we come from diverse perspectives, but we have to cross-pollinate our ideas. And when we move to the edge of cross-pollinating, that's where the new learning comes. That's the kind of, I suppose, the ethos behind the World Cafe concept. And I suppose then what happens is we have a round of questions and we move, and everybody will move in the room to a new table, or they'll be put in a new room digitally. But the table host remains at that table for the entire session. So what effectively happens is cross-pollination of ideas, and this is where we get to a stage of magic in the middle. And then we have to listen together, I suppose, for insights, what's coming out of the questions, what's been said, what's not been said. And then we move to deciding what have we learned from our session. So we have this whole cycle of harvesting, and it's a little bit like we plant the seeds, which are the questions. we allow the discussions to take place, and then we reap the rewards at the end of the session. So at the end of each table round, we could have a mini harvest where we gather a lot of information, and then we could also have a master harvest at the end of the entire session as well. So this might be an example of a master harvest. So each group would come up with the 3 things that stood out from today's session out of the 3 or 4 questions that we took to the session. A few tips would be that the ambience is really important. We need 4 to 5 people at a table. Ideally 4 should only be at a table, really maximum of 5. We need to also have all contributors discussing the same questions at the same time. I used to think there was different questions going on at different times at the different tables. The table host remains at the same table, like I mentioned. You have to have 12 people to call it a World Cafe technically as well. About 20 minutes around, and then you have to have at least 3 questions as well. So just a couple of photos I just said I'd bring along. So what I do for my sessions is I give each question on a different colour because I think it helps later on. This is a group, you see on the flip chart, the colours, and then they're being asked the questions. And then their mini harvests take place on the hexagonal kind of sheets of what each question came up in each group. And then the overall master harvest is the overall findings. What I also find is I put the questions on the table and on the flip charts so that there's no confusion. And just if anyone wants any, sorry, just a few more photos of how you might work a World Cafe. And this was one of our really good World Cafes we held. We've just become an age-friendly university, and as an age-friendly champion, we hosted an amazing World Cafe with over 65 older adults, seeing what we could do for them as a university, and the conversations and the outputs were just amazing. And these are some of our wonderful 4th year students and postgraduate students in health promotion. And just the name of the course to finish off, if anyone's interested, is the Hosting Fundamentals course, and it's only an annual intake once a year in September, and it's an 8 week course, and Amy is the facilitator for setting this up. And I think that's it. Yeah, okay, so thank you, and that's a real, I know that's a real whistle-top tour, but if people want to email me or whatever, I'm happy to talk to them about the methodology as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. It's a tool I've seen being used very well over the last few years, and it does gather great insight to whatever the discussion is. So next we have Colin Hart, exploring the integration of traditional and synthetic instructional video as an enhancement to 3rd level construction education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in simpler terms, this is essentially looking at introducing and development of traditional video and also using AI to generate video in construction subjects. I suppose the rationale for this research is that a lot of construction students have difficulty in the visualization and the alignment of tasks and techniques in construction. It's a very visual subject, but yet we're delivering so much of the material through words. The ideal scenario, I suppose, for integrating video into the subject is through flipped classroom, whereby you're allowing them to use the resource in their own time and at their own pace. Generative AI, I suppose, is across many platforms. Within construction, it's relatively new, but we've seen some very good examples today of the likes in the medical field, whereby video has been integrated in the patient simulations and key areas like that. So essentially what I did was I created a synthetic video through a program called Synthesia, and a traditional video was produced through Camtasia. The construction task was insulated concrete form, which is a kind of a relatively new concept in construction, but some of the key outcomes from this was the importance of Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. And I suppose I have no experience in video before I started this process, but I needed an instructional model, and I utilized the ADDIE model, which is a phase step of designing resources. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you a sample of the traditional video, and I'll give you some insights from the research.
ICF blocks are made of lightweight expanded polystyrene, or EPS, and are hollow in the middle. The blocks are designed with a grid that interlocks and allows for easy installation. ICF performs particularly well for passive house applications because the installation continuity is guaranteed at all, achieving compliance with building regs, NZEB standards, and passive house standards. It works particularly well and surpasses requirements of minimum standards for U values and produces 0.15 watts per meter squared with the system. One of the key construction and design principles of the blocks is the system is based on the interlocking principle. Lego combined this principle with studs and tubes to create their famous Lego brick. ICF is based on a very similar theory. The interlocking section will not allow the installer to place the block in a position that does not match its 50mm increments. This leads to further precision. The ICF, as once the primary course is squared and levelled, then the installer, in theory, should be unable to change any wall length, as the blocks will not fit together. This principle also increases speed, as there is reduced measuring, levelling, and squaring required.
So I think the feedback, your feedback today and the feedback from the participants to be the same. We had problems with sound, picture quality, transitions, and these are, I suppose, some of the difficulties that you face in create with self-development or self-developed video. One of the main benefits, though, of having your own video is the pedagogical approach, and this is something that Gen AI is incapable of in their own video at the moment. So you saw the analogy of the Lego blocks. Although it's quite simple, it does call on the students' prior knowledge and begins to scaffold that concept of the insulated block and the 50mm increments between. Some of the main findings or key themes were the authenticity and credibility. Students have demonstrated that in order for the video to be impactful, they need to it needs to feel authentic, that it's made genuinely, and the credibility ties in with that. That if they feel that the video is actually authentic, then they will feel that it is useful to know or to understand and engage with. Just construction-based footage then is crucial. So for the video to be authentic, you actually need site-specific contextual footage. The other problem is post-production editing of this type of video is very cumbersome. And with changing regulations and legislation in construction, you need to have that adaptability. I'm just going to show you now the synthetic video.
Imagine constructing a building as easily as assembling a child's toy. Insulated concrete formwork, ICF blocks made from lightweight expanded polystyrene, EPS, offer this revolutionary approach. Let's explore how these blocks interlock like Lego for seamless assembly. ICF is recognized as a modern construction method by housing authorities. Its innovative design ensures quick assembly, making it a favorite in the construction industry. But what makes it truly stand out? Let's dive deeper. ICF materials resist moisture, rot, and pests, ensuring durability. These properties make ICF a reliable choice for long-lasting construction. Let's see how these benefits translate into real-world applications. ICF systems excel in insulation and airtightness, meeting passive house standards. This ensures energy efficiency and comfort in any building.
I'm just going to cut that short because I'm cognizant of time. So when I created the generative AI video through Synthesia, the first thing I did was check the quality of the information. There's a lot of inaccurate information delivered. Actually, the majority of it is There's also the alignment of graphics. That graphic there, for instance, isn't actually the product that I'm talking about. The lack of authenticity. So participants identified there was a wow factor initially with the use of an avatar, but they seem to disengage for a number of reasons after a short period. And also having the agent on screen was kind of a distraction. And that's one of kind of the weaknesses in the research, and something I've come to realize in the conclusions is that the application of CTML principles are so important. If you're trying to create any sort of video, you still need to have them basic principles and apply them as you can. Some of the positives then were the precision and the polish, and also the speech fluency with the resource. The digital avatar and the program allow for rapid content updates. So I spoke to you about the problem in construction, about the change in regulations. This is really impressive how quickly you can produce these videos. You've also got the accessibility enhancements, and there's any resource that's created can be translated into 140 languages. And also you've got sign language avatars, which really do create that need for the diverse student. Okay, so just for conclusion, I'm going to let my own personalized digital avatar, and potentially is this the answer between personalized education and the Gen AI?
In conclusion, examples of students interacting with video in a blended learning approach were common, where the student missed some key information during a class, but had the comfort in recorded content that could be watched in their own time. The short duration of content in social media's video may be changing preferences to shorter durations. The research indicates this group may be more amenable to digital avatars, but still expect the personalized lecturer-student relationship. From an educator perspective, there is potential for expansion of video in the classroom. Within my own work, I have important health and safety training in a practical module where video may be used to ensure accuracy and reduce verbal instruction. The conclusion suggests that educators who want to create videos need fitting pedagogical approaches, instructional design support, videography training, and most importantly, time. There are some ethical concerns over consent and misuse, and the potential misuse of digital representations. I could potentially create a digital avatar of anyone here today with 5 minutes of you recorded on video. Add to this, the phenomenon of deepfakes and misinformation needs consideration. So synthetic videos versus traditional video, who wins? Artificial intelligence is across both applications already and is growing. It could be suggested that using the synthetic video platform, but applying instructional design principles with original video content, may have benefits. The scalability factor of synthetic video has massive potential with scope to expand across regions with the removal of language barriers. Finally, the authenticity and credibility were major themes in this research. The use of a personalized digital avatar needs further investigation, but what are your thoughts? Thank you for your time.
You got any feedback from learners on that? Yeah, thanks for the question. What's your name? Sorry. Thanks very much. So I actually, when I was creating this slide, I actually decided then to create my own digital avatar. That is probably one of the areas that needs further study, because I read a paper there recently, and it's demonstrating that there's no actual difference in learning outcomes between the personalized avatar and the personalized instruction. So students seem to be very interested and amenable to utilizing the avatars as part of the learning process. But I think it's a really good area to look into, is that personalized avatar. I was just saying there as well, that's a paid package, obviously, with Synthesia, and the upgraded version, you can actually do your voice. And that would be a big part. And also, I mean, the technology is moving so quickly that the non-verbal indicators that you notice there, like the mouth or the eyes, they're going to be washed out of it fairly soon, you know. So I think it's it's an interesting area, yeah.
Curious as to, you mentioned 5 minutes of training with the system. how much training you give to achieve what you got in your avatar there?
The avatar that was created in,
Did you have to feed into it?
oh, sorry, 15 minutes. Yeah, so basically, sit in front of a webcam, talk us. They give you a script. Script is maybe 5 to 7 minutes, then a bit of GDPR and confidential, and send it off. Then I came back 12 hours later.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's still an uncanny valley element to it.
Yeah.
Even with their own avatar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing that it can be done to that level.
Yeah. Well, even the input of the information into the script is so quick. And I said that AI is across both, but there, when I'm presenting, removing them or increasing that speech fluency for me is a big one. With I mentioned the health and safety module. If what I want with that is not to engage, I want to engage the students, but I want the accuracy that the students understand all the safety and the process with the tools. That kind of area could be really, I suppose, useful where you can integrate that into that real accurate training. But again, I think it'd be really good to ask the students how they feel about it, as in, where would you like to see it used in the course?
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear their feedback on the avatar yourself versus the built-in citizens.
Yeah,
I'd love to chat through that afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
Okay. Colin, Noreen, you can.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Eamon. Next, we have Dr. Teresa Montgomery, and Teresa is going to give us 2 initiatives on bridging research capacity.
Okay, hello, hi everybody. My name is Therese and I'm a lecturer here in ATU. So I've lectured in this room before, so this is a little bit unusual, a different audience. And I was lecturing in Athlone for about 10 years before I came here. And I want to speak to you about 2 different initiatives today. So one is the Science Undergraduate Research Experience Network. I'm the chair of this network. It's been running for a good few years. And another is the Poster in Brussels, which is a new project that ATU is working on that I am leading on. And there's a team of people working on these. And I just have to say, I'm blown away by the talks today. I find them both stimulating and terrifying. And just in the personal avatar, I guess the student has to get to know the person first for a personal avatar to have, impact and authenticity. And so that kind of does link to undergraduate research. So everybody here is familiar with undergraduate research, I'm sure. It forms a part of most of our programs, and it's a key critical program assessment tool. We use it to assess program learning outcomes, which are often tricky and diverse and spread across many modules. And we can use it to assess critical thinking, problem solving, logic, information generation, data synthesis, all the good stuff we want the students to continue to learn independently themselves, not relying on tools in this world of AI. So it's becoming increasingly important. It takes many different formats in many different disciplines. Typically in the sciences, it ranges from about 10 to 30 ECTS credits in the 3rd or 4th year of a program. And we often have a module to accompany it called research methods or scientific communications. And again, looking at the content of today, I think we really need to consider a lot of generative AI in these modules going forward. So we have been updating our assessment of undergraduate research. I suppose it's happening everywhere. For myself, I am a program coordinator for a 3rd year program. I've got 63 students working on independent research projects. And we've been updating our assessments, thinking about structural redesign, increasing the weighting on the Viva, decreasing weightings on thesis intros, etc. And the beauty about undergraduate research projects is that the student works one-on-one with a lecturer. They get independent feedback, and they can develop, they're given a research question, or they develop it, and they have to generate new data, novel data to answer that research question, and then they have to interpret that data. So it is a really, really useful research tool. And I think, listening to everything I've heard today, I think it's when we think about large assessment redesign on a program level, we really need to start thinking about the greater utility of undergraduate research and research projects as a mean to counteract some of the challenges faced by AI in terms of people using tools endlessly to generate content as opposed to being able to generate it themselves from knowledge. But they're just my thoughts. That's not specifically what I wanted to talk to you today, with two initiatives that have been about promoting undergraduate research. So we have a website, the Shore Network website. This network was started in 2016. I was working in Athlone at the time by Kieran O'Leary. He's now the Assistant Head of Teaching and Learning in TU Dublin. And he brought together a group of people who were interested in looking at undergraduate research. And it was at a time when the IoTs were all merging and becoming technological universities, and research was one of the major strategic ambitions across all of these universities. And so today it's gone through a few iterations. I took over as chair in around 2020, and we've got active academic members from TU Dublin, TUS, ATU, Dundalk, CETU and MTU involved in this network. And we do a number of different initiatives, one which ran here recently in ATU. But our core objectives are to share resources, which we do effectively, community of practice and collaboration networking. So it's great to have this collaboration across all of those different technological universities and Dundalk IT, a lot of collaboration. Really, we want to promote research awareness of the value of research at undergraduate level, developing a culture of research while the students are still at undergraduate level and creating that postgraduate pipeline for research. And to remind people that undergraduate research is a fantastic tool to develop those graduate attributes that we want, and also to celebrate our student successes. So how we have been doing that is through running a series of conferences. We run one every year, or sometimes 3 a year for the last 7 years. And we have some impressive stats at this point. And the idea of this conference, I would be the national coordinator of these conferences and work with a team of people across the Shore Network to pull them off every year. And the idea of these conferences is that students who've just completed a research project or are completing it in the final year of their programme, they submit an abstract to our committee. And we review that abstract, we give them feedback, independent feedback, and we select abstracts from probably about 150 submissions nationally each year. And we invite the students to the conference to give either an oral or poster presentation. They benefit from dedicated oral presenter training workshops and poster presenter training workshops in advance of the conference. And we've had some significant people, as I'm sure you can see there from the slides, open the conferences for us. The most recent one just took place last year here in Galway. So this is myself and the national organising, or the ATU organising team. And it was a fantastic conference. The students' work, the posters that they generated and their abstracts are all available on our website through my lovely QR code there with the dinosaur. And so you can have a look at that. The next conference will actually be taking place next year and will also be hosted by ATU, being led on by Ava Campion from Sligo. Just to mention, NTutor gave us funding just last year for the catering for that conference. So that's a fantastic way. The conferences are really good at telling future students. We've had about 3,600 students attend these conferences now, and they're people who are just starting their undergraduate research projects. So the feedback I always get is that the conference is very motivational, and that they see real people, that authentic piece, delivering on their projects, and it gives them ideas as to what they might do. We also have a journal, an undergraduate research journal, ISN, indexed with GOAJ now. And the closing date for publication in our 7th issue is coming up this June. It's on the 12th of June. And more recently, my colleague, Dr. Sinead Loughrane, who's a member of the Shore Network, has been running authorship support sessions, teaching students how they can convert their thesis into a paper to work in that journal. This is Kieran. So he founded the network. Some of you might know him. And he was at the time a head of teaching and learning of the School of Computing in TU Dublin. Now he's the assistant head of teaching and learning for TU Dublin. And he had a wonderful project there a few years ago. It was called Shore Bites. All of these resources are available on our website. He would ask a researcher to pose a research question in video format. You play that in the class. The students, you encourage discussion, figure out how do we answer this question, and then you will play the video and have the answer to the question. And so there's wonderful topics here. It's a really good suite of resources. It's on our website, and Kieran led in that project and brought a lot of people with him alongside it. We also have Anne-Marie O'Brien. She's in TUS. Also a major part of the Shore Network. Myself and Anne-Marie ran the first conference back in 2018, and we do all this oral-based, what she does, teach oral presenter workshops, and she has a team of people working with her too. So there's loads going on there, right? And I would encourage you, if you haven't heard of us before, check out the Shore Network. It's voluntary, and really we have undergraduate research is the passion at the core of it, and it's connecting all of these technological institutions. The new project is called Poster in Brussels. There's a team working here in ATU, and we've also put together a team nationally. And we've two ambitions. So again, it's about celebrating undergraduate research, but bringing in some additional aspects. You know, we want to promote civic engagement in our students. We want them to figure out how to deliver their research with maximal impact. How do they affect change? How do they talk to policymakers and politicians, and why this is important? And so there's 5 universities involved across Europe. I'm leading on the ATU package along with these guys, and we each want to run a poster in Parliament session. So where you invite undergraduate students from universities all around Ireland to come and present their research in poster format. It's in Q4 this year. In our case, it'll be in the Oireachtas. And then next year, we have a similar event running in Brussels. So it's scheduled for the European Parliament in Brussels. And again, students from universities all across Europe will go through a competitive process to be able to represent their university at that event. And as I'm talking to you, I'm sure you can see the good in all of this. You know, like it'll focusing on undergraduate research, teaching students how to identify truth, evidence-based research, how to generate new content themselves, and then how to disseminate that to people who matter, to people who can affect change, useful skills. So this is kind of an overview slide of that project. So each of these 5 universities in those lovely yellow countries there are running their national parliaments, and then we'll all come together in Brussels next year. Or in 2026. And so this is our logo. The national team have I hope nobody objects to it. This has took a lot of discussion to come up with our logo, Poster Centre Oireachtas, and we're launching it this week. And so the invitations have gone out to the various different universities to put forward their nominees. I'm happy to say that 9 are on board so far, inclusive of ATU. We contacted 20 HEIs, and what we're launching kind of now and later this week is that our Posters in Parliament event, the Irish one, is going to take place in the Oireachtas in Q4. Our political champion has come on board, and that's the Minister for Higher Education, James Lawless. And we also got a lot of support from Marion Harkin and a couple of other MEPs, because there's a European context. The theme of this event is Research for Change, and students who make it through our selection process to the end will publish their research automatically in a special edition of Sure J, and we'll give them dedicated training on research dissemination for impact. And so the nomination process is opening within ATU, and we'll be looking to our academic staff across all of our 9 campuses to really think about the projects that excelled, the students that generated new knowledge independently with your assistance, things that impressed you, and to nominate those students and to give them an opportunity to come forward and take part in this event. And we hope to turn it into an annual thing. And so this is the team as we're working on this at the moment. So you can see myself, Cormac, Bridget, who would have been instrumental in organising the Shore Conference there just gone by in October, and Ava from our Sligo campus, and also Marie from TUS, Adele from SATU, James from TU Dublin, and Sinead from Dundalk IT, all members of the Shore Network. So I would have brought this project back to the network and built the team out from there. And I just want to leave, I know there's a lot of information there, too much, I think, but I just want to go back to, given the theme of the conference, I want to go back to this slide and say we're all familiar with undergraduate research, and we're all looking for solutions to counteract the challenges placed by, does the student generate it themselves, or do the students use Gen AI tools to generate the content? And we can see the importance of the authenticity in developing assessment. And I just think that undergraduate research has a lot of potential now more than ever. And so now is the time to be looking to promote. So that's it. Yeah, thanks very much.
Very much, Therese, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name in your introductions. It's a fantastic opportunity for undergraduates, and it's great to get it out there and get more publicity around it. Thank you very much. Next, we have John Howe from UCC. Hock. I'm doing it all wrong today. John Hock. I'm expecting this is going to go back to the validity type discussion from this morning's keynote, is it? Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Trust but verify. Collaborating students trust. Yeah, in Gen AI for research.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, I'm John Hock from University College Cork, and actually this project is I suppose a research project I was doing as part of a higher diploma in interaction design. So I'm coming at it through the lens of interaction design, user experience. And I was curious about Gen AI and the contrast between search, so searching using Gen AI versus, I suppose, Google search. And somehow I ended up going down this rabbit hole into trust. But I think that's one of the great things about doing research, is that you don't know where it's going to end up, and you learn lots along the way. I'm using the Terminator here as a metaphor, I suppose, because like the Terminator, because Gen AI, like the Terminator, it can appear human and it can talk like us, and it's always willing to please, I suppose. But it's still a machine, and it's shaped, I suppose, ultimately by its mission, its programming, and the data it was trained on. So we hear the term trust and trustworthiness an awful lot in terms of AI. The government just published its responsible use of AI in public service guidelines, and these outline 7 principles of trustworthy AI. But what is trust? Trust in technology is essentially like an autopilot for our decision making. So it kicks in when systems are too complex to grasp, or when we don't have the time or the expertise to assess every little detail ourselves. So when trust is present, we adopt tools and we use them confidently. And this brings me to misplaced trust. So like trusting the wrong Terminator, this guy here, you've all seen the Terminator. Yeah. So he's a friendly police officer who goes around basically killing people. And so AI often sounds incredibly confident, and the tools, they look slick, and this can actually influence our trust levels in them because they seem credible. So likewise, if students blindly trust AI, they might end up, citing fake hallucinated references. And this is a big issue for academic integrity. And, there's a real world example of some lawyers who were reprimanded for actually citing fake cases in the US. I don't know whether that was, maybe that was just down to pure laziness on on their behalf. Who knows? But the flip side then is warranted distrust. So Sarah Connor here, she rightly distrusts the Terminators because in the first film, there was one sent to kill her. So she's formed her trust judgments based on that experience. So some students might see AI purely as a threat, and outrightly reject them. So maybe possibly rejecting possibly helpful tools out of fear or unfamiliarity, and this can limit maybe their learning experiences. So if blind trust is risky and total distrust is limiting, what's the sweet spot? Well, it's called calibrated trust. So this is a trust that's balanced and informed. So it's about understanding the AI, its strengths and its weaknesses. So just like John Connor here is learning about the Terminator, how does it work? What can it do and can't do? So it's about finding that kind of happy balance between trust and distrust. Not to get too bogged down in the theory, but this graph basically shows the multi-dimensional nature of trust. On one axis, you have how trustworthy the AI actually is, the trustworthiness here. And then on the other axis, you've got the user's trust. And when user trust and the trustworthiness of the AI system are matched, you get this nice kind of calibrated system. And it also highlights, I suppose, that trust and distrust, they're not just opposite ends of one spectrum, they can coexist. So I carried out some research. I surveyed 73 students who were coaxed with Easter eggs in order to participate. So each student watched 2 videos of 2 Gen AI tools and answered, or the Gen AI tools, basically, the video showed an interaction where, you know, a student is performing a search query. ChatGPT outputs data. There's no references. Consensus is a relatively new chatbot designed for academic research, and that provides kind of inline referencing. So my findings, students had a neutral kind of attitude towards trust, right around a midpoint of 3 out of a 5-point scale. They also showed elevated levels of distrust for both tools, and this was interesting. Probably most interestingly, Consensus wasn't significantly more trusted than ChatGPT, even though it was providing references. So this shows that tools marketed for academia don't actually automatically earn trust if students don't know or don't understand them. And why is this? Well, almost no students had heard of it or had used Consensus. So this tells us that familiarity and proven reliability are very important for forming those positive trust attitudes. I also did some qualitative, I suppose, a thematic analysis. You know, they were asked open-ended questions about what were the reasons for them trusting or distrusting each chatbot. And these were some of the things that resulted: perceived ability and reliability. So does it seem competent? Can it handle complex topics without hallucinating? Transparency was also really important. Citations seem to help, but only if students can and do check them. Also, contextual relevance is really important. Students are smart, you know, they'll use AI for brainstorming, but they're wary about using it for formal referencing. So it's really about, you know, selecting the right tool for the right job. And experience and past experience and emotions, as you can see, you get a full gamut of different opinions towards AI. And as we saw earlier with Sarah Connor, you know, based on past experience. So early iterations of chatbots, I suppose, you know, weren't very trustworthy and they did hallucinate a lot. So that kind of causes issues then going forward if we're introducing these tools into academic institutions. So are we headed for an academic judgment day with AI, or a better future where AI is our ally? The good news is that students seem to be cautious, and that's a good starting point. Tools offering citations are a step forward, but transparency alone isn't a magic bullet. So familiarity, proven reliability, and a good user experience are vital. And crucially, students need to build AI literacy in order to form that calibrated trust and to understand these systems better. These are just some recommendations based on this small research project. You know, as educators, we need to teach AI literacy, critical thinking, source verification. We need to look at implementing context-specific AI solutions, not just general-purpose AI solutions. And as institutes adopting AI technologies, we need to verify and verify rather than trust and verify. As designers then and developers of these tools, we need to recognize the social and emotional dimensions of trust and build tools that signal credibility and communicate their limitations. And this helps then for users to calibrate their trust levels. And as I've said already, students need to be curious, but be critical, and use AI as a tool, not a crutch, and always verify your sources. Thanks.
So, Margaret, Colin, Therese, John, thank you very much. Hang on for the last session. Okay, we're just going to take 10 minutes, go get a coffee, please, and then we're going to finish off with the GASTA, okay? So we're looking forward to the GASTA. Tom is here, or is he out having coffee? I think he's here, is he? But we will be back online in 10 minutes. I'll send a note on that. So 4:10 we'll start the GASTA.
and conclude the conference. Thank you.